Let's cross over to New York, joined by professor from City University of New York, Daniel Shaw. Thank you so much for being with us. Well, tell me your take on this. Of course, the demonstrations are continuing, but there are people whose lives are at risk in the middle of all of this.
Well, last Saturday, we saw the people of New York and Chicago and across this country flock to the JFK and O'Hara airports and LAX to stand in solidarity with immigrants and refugees, with a resounding no to Trump's agenda of racism and fascism. So this is really the ruling class's worst nightmare. They knew that Trump brought together really the worst of this country and the worst of the ruling class of this country: bigotry, homophobia, fascism, and now we're seeing demonstrations in the tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, actually in the millions across the country. And they really wanted a Clinton presidency because they knew the fight back movement would not be this strong. So what they have on their hands now is a massive united movement, and they don't know what to do with it.
Well, let me look at what you just said a little bit further. What about there are others who say that actually it's a class struggle, but with someone like a Donald Trump in power, who of course is a billionaire himself. They have projected that the problem, of course, illegal immigrants or migrants, when actually the problem will be more of a class struggle, right? With more than, with 1% actually of the global population, of course, having more of an income than 50% of the rest of the population. So is it something basically trying to detract from the actual problem, which many would say would probably be more class than anything else?
I think that is 100% correct. Donald Trump is the scapegoater in chief. He's the demagogue in chief. He may use all of this working class imagery, but behind there are fierce attacks against working class people's rights, against the unions. His cabinet is composed of the Bannons and the Tillersons. These are arch racists. These are CEOs of fast food corporations and Exxon Mobil. So never has it been clearer the crisis of capitalism. And what we have now is another section of the ruling class trying to get behind the Democratic Party and take the momentum of the protests into the Democratic Party. But of course, the Answer Coalition and the Party for Socialism and Liberation and the other revolutionary groups, the anti-imperialist groups, form the other pole of the movement. And we're seeing an incredible increase in people's interest in anti-imperialism, in socialism, in radical politics.
Okay, because I was going to ask you actually, because another criticism perhaps by some when looking at those who are demonstrating, a lot of people ask, of course, it's definitely a lot more blatant under Trump's presidency, but of course, Obama, former U.S. President Obama, was definitely no dove himself, which we know the amount of bombs that actually fell in the heads of Muslims last year, over 20,000, but yet we did not see mass protests. So tell me, what's the difference? What has happened?
Well, that's definitely one of the contradictions. We certainly have been in the streets for the past 8 years against Obama, and before that against Bush, and before that against Clinton. It's one continuous system of capitalism and imperialism. But right now it's just more unrestrained. It's in your face. There's a bigot in the White House. And again, the ruling class didn't want this. They knew this would bring the full ire and rebellion of the American people and people across the globe. So they're in a huge panic right now, and they're trying to catapult the Democratic Party as the savior. But so many people have woken up to the Democratic Party is just the same, is the other head of the coin of capitalism and of a system that doesn't favor the interests of the majority of people. So people are looking for another way out. There's a renewed interest in socialism, in protests, and really we're seeing this country and this globe on the verge of major transformation.
All right. Thank you so much for being with us out of New York, Professor Daniel Shaw from City University of New York.